What is going on, button pushers? Welcome to the channel. My name is David, and today I'm going to talk about why I decided to spend $5,000 on a tripod. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. There's a lot of information in this video, so make sure to check out in the description below. I've put timestamps and chapters. That way you guys can navigate through the video really well, because there's going to be a ton of information, because I don't want to just talk about the tripod, but tripods in general for those of you who aren't too familiar with what a good tripod will have, so that when you're going out and buying your own tripods, you know exactly what to look for. So if you're here to actually have some information on the Aktiv 10 tripod itself, be sure to jump to this timestamp here so that you can learn more about it itself rather than going into general tripods. If you guys aren't too familiar with tripods actually come in about 3 or 4 different parts. I say 3 or 4 because one of them is debatable and is basically part of another part. So pretty much let's start from the bottom up to the top of the tripod. So at the bottom you have the legs. The legs are super important because pretty much it's what holds your tripod up. You can either have them with a spreader, which is that debatable part. It's a mid spreader or a ground spreader depending on what you necessarily need, and this is pretty much to restrict and keep your tripod a little bit more stable. It restricts the legs from pulling out too far when you're in a specific place or a specific need where you don't want the legs to be flat, because sometimes something might go wrong and your tripod could fall over on one leg and your camera could fall. But that's what the spreader is for, to prevent that from ever happening. But spreaders are detachable on some tripods. Some tripods have them connected completely, and other tripods don't have them at all. So it really depends on what tripod you have and what your necessary needs are. Mid spreaders are definitely my favorite. Ground spreaders are really good for flat land, but a spreader is going to increase the payload of your tripod because it keeps it a little bit more sturdy. Then we have your tripod bowl. The bowl is pretty much where the top of the tripod, the head of the tripod, and the legs meet. So there are different types of bowls to the tripod. There's a 75mm bowl, which is very common for, hobbyists and, light users. There's the 100mm bowl, which is the minimum for a tripod you should get for like cinema cameras or heavy duty and professional use. And then you have the 150mm bowls for those really heavy, hefty rigs, and these tripod heads go for a lot. So the bowl is super important to think about when it's coming down to what kind of cameras you're going to use. How are you going to use this tripod? Are you going to use it in a professional setting? Are you going to be using it as a hobbyist thing? It's really important to know. And again, 100mm should be the minimum amount of the bowl size that you should be getting, because honestly 75 is good for lighter cameras, mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, but small cinema cameras, I feel like a 100mm bowl is the minimum. And if you aren't familiar with what the bowl size is actually, so you see this bottom part of here, this is a 100mm bowl. A 75mm bowl is going to be like a little bit less than this, so it's kind of like the distribution of the weight across the top of the tripod, because if it's too small and too light, when you mount a heavy camera on top, your tripod's going to like shake, and you're going to see that in the footage, and it's kind of pretty much like your tripod won't be able to handle it if it's too heavy. And lastly, we have the actual tripod head. Now the tripod head is what you're mounting your camera to. This is going to be able to control like the movements, how smooth things go, and counterbalancing and just leveling. It's pretty much the most important part of a tripod. If you have a really good head with okay legs, I think you're better off that way. The head actually restricts more of the payload than the legs themselves, because you can only mount a specific amount to the head based on what it can handle as far as tension and counterbalance and smoothness goes. We'll definitely talk more about all of these parts during the video when I'm actually going into the specific parts of the tripod itself. These are the 3 to 4 parts that build a whole tripod together. So David, why did you spend $5,000 on a tripod? Well, actually I spent $4,300 because I had a $900 off on a used one on B&H, and I really could not turn that down, because $900 is a lot of money, and even though $4,300 is a lot of money, I thought the deal was pretty good. I've been through a lot of tripods in my life. Like tripods is one of those things where you kind of have it because you might need it sometimes, or you use it a lot, but it's not one of those things where you feel like you need to drop a lot of money on. Like you're down, like if you see a new camera, you're like, oh yeah, we need to drop $7,000 on that. But you hear a tripod, you're like, oh, $2,000 for a tripod? That's doesn't seem too necessary. But as you progress more and more, you get heavier cameras, you get better rigs, you know, you start mounting a bunch of different things, monitors, wireless transmission systems, and all this stuff, and your rigs just gets heavy and heavy and heavy and heavy, and then you finally realize that your tiny $20 Amazon tripod can't handle it. Then you definitely go out and get the Manfrotto 502A, and that's a 75mm bowl, and you start using that, and then, you know, it works out for a little bit, and then you start getting even heavier rigs, and then you start noticing that even though you mounted a slider on top of it, and you got like counterweights and stuff, as you're moving your camera on the slider, you start noticing that the tripod gives in a little bit and falls forward a little bit, or falls backward a little bit, or just introduces a little shake. Yeah, that happens pretty often. And recently, my tripod legs for my 502 75mm bowl broke. The tripod just snapped, and I was like, well, maybe I should invest in a good tripod now. So for the past like 6 months, I've literally been sitting here debating, should I get a Sachtler? Should I get a Sachtler? And there's so many different options for Sachtlers. Why did I decide to go for this one? There are a ton of ways you can build tripods. You can build a Frankenstein build where you have a different brand of legs, a different head, a different spreader. It doesn't matter. But I decided to go with the Aktiv 10 for plenty of reasons, and let's start off by talking about the Flowtech Legs. So I actually used my friend's Sachtler for a while, and I've used some on some productions, and the Sachtler Flowtech Legs are super amazing. I really love the flexibility, the speed, and how much it can go as far as use. So you know when you're using a tripod and you have like different latches for different sections, so like if you have a 2-section tripod, there's 2 different latches to extend the legs out. Yeah, the Sachtler has one for each leg, and that goes all the way through 2 sections, so it makes it super fast to just extend the legs or shorten the legs, and you don't really have to worry too much, and it's super easy to do by yourself. It's just super quick, and the legs go very tall. Online it says that the legs go up to 5 feet, but in actual use I've noticed that it probably goes up to about 6. Also, what I love about these legs is that they can go really low, but the fact that I have the Aktiv, which you guys might not understand yet, makes it go even lower, and I will show you guys later in the video, just remind me. But let's jump to the head of the tripod. So the build quality of this head is really nice. It has a really kind of a heavy weight to it, so you can kind of tell by feeling it that it's just a really sturdy head. Like, it's really hard, and that kind of hurts. So I feel like if I were to ever like drop this, it would be definitely okay. So most heads have a lot of counterbalance options. There's usually like at least 1, 2, 3 different options for counterbalances and, you know, tensions. This one has 7 stops of tension for the tilt and the pan, and then 15 options for counterbalance. Now I'm going to go through exactly what that means for the tripod head and kind of how it deals with getting your shot. But first, I want to go through a few different features that are on this head that I really appreciate that Sachtler added, because it's really nice additions. First things first, that a lot of people may not even think about, is that there's actually a place to screw in extra screws. So if you ever had trouble finding screws for your tripod, no longer, because they are actually on the tripod head itself, extra screws to make sure that you always have at least 2. On top of that, if you're ever working in the dark and you need to figure out if your tripod's level, you have the bubble level that actually lights up and glows in the dark. Not only that for the bubble level itself, but if you press and hold, you actually get a light for the counterbalance and the tilt tensions as well. It just gives it a quick little light so you can see. So if you're ever in the dark and find yourself in a situation like that, definitely very useful. And like most professional tripods, you have the hard stop for your plate, where if your plate decides to fall, it can't come off unless you push the button right here. Now let's jump back into the different levels of tension. So I'm going to put on the screen me trying to track and reach the top of things at different speeds at different tensions. In this clip, from the bottom to the top, I'm going up and down at a tension of 0. So you can see how fast and how easy it is to move. And then in this clip, I'm going from the bottom to the top at a tension of 7, the max. So it's a little bit harder, a little bit smoother, and a little bit slower. If you guys can't see that there, here is the same thing with the pan tension. So this one's at 0. I'm just gonna, spin the camera around and whip it back and forth. These are good for whip pans and, different types of shots depending on how smooth, how slow, and, how fast you actually need to get to a shot. Then in this clip, I'm doing the same exact thing at a tension of 7. So from actually using this tripod, I've noticed that how much force I actually need to put into it when it's at tension 7, which makes sure that you get that smooth shot, that you don't accidentally like shake the whole head, because you have less control over it because it's fighting against you. The tension is really, really good, really, really strong, and it really makes for good shots. I'm sure you've used tripods before where, you're on the max tension, but still it's just not smooth enough, it's not fighting back enough, so you have a little bit too much control and it makes the shot a little bit messed up, so you gotta go even slower, you gotta really get in and focus on it. But with the Sachtler, it fights back a ton, and it's kind of heavy, so you don't really have too much control over it, so it's really fighting back against you and really allowing you to get a smooth shot, whether it's the tilt, whether it's the pan, or whatever, and it really just helps. So what exactly is the counterbalance system on a tripod head? The counterbalance system is going to help the camera stay centered on the tripod head. So as you can see in this clip here, you see me pushing down on the tripod as hard as I can. It's at a tension 7 at max counterbalance, and you can see that the head just falls back into place when I let go. That's the counterbalance system. So when it's at 0, it just falls. It's just like slowly starts dropping, or it could be very fast depending on the tension level. That's the counterbalance system. So if you need the tripod to stay level at the top, you can use that counterbalance system. Or if you're trying to push it all the way down to look straight down at something, the fact that the tripod head even has all these options just gives you so much versatility when it comes down to deciding what shot you need to get. If you need to do a whip pan, if you need a slow tracking shot, it gives you so many different options. David, why does this tripod head that for $2,500 justify itself for doing all of this? And any tripod can do this, but why the Aktiv 10? So the thing about the Aktiv 10, it is Sachtler's newest tripod head, and the thing about it is that it allows you to go from tripod to slider to a different whole setup in seconds. Why is that? Because it has a quick release for the tripod head, and I think that is absolutely cool because there is no other technology like that for tripods, and I'm going to show you. So the tripod head has this latch right here, and this latch is what takes the tripod head off, and also allows you to level the tripod, move it around, and just fix it up and get it level with the bubble. So in the bowl you have the adapter, the bowl adapter. So this is a flat thing. It kind of looks like this. It's a little pin, and that is some crazy tech, and I really, really like that. So pretty much you put this at the bottom of the tripod leg, screw it in, you would put it all in and everything, and there's no actual handle to twist it in at the bottom. There's a lot of tripods where if you're trying to level it out, there's a twist thing at the bottom, and it kind of gets in the way. It's pretty big, it's obstructing, and it doesn't let you put the tripod flat on the ground. Anyways, so this latch here, if you lift it up halfway, you're able to level the tripod. You can move it around anywhere you want, so you can just to make sure that it's level with the ground and your camera angle is very straight. With enough force, if you pull it all the way up, the tripod head comes right off. You don't have to worry about someone accidentally pulling it off, because again, it takes a lot of force to actually pull it up all the way, and you'll feel it. Like if you see here me hitting it, you can see that my fingers hit a little bump in the thing. So anything past that bump means the tripod head is going to come off. But halfway, you can just start moving around, and it's really, really simple, and it's kind of crazy how fast you can adapt it to things. And they also sell these adapter things. This little slider adapter was an extra $100. Pretty much you just screw it on the slider, and then they also have a tripod adapter for the slider where you mount the tripod adapter to the bottom of the slider and then just slap that on the tripod itself, and it's just so amazing. I really, really like that. And the thing about not having that little tightening thing at the bottom means that I can literally lay my tripod completely 180-degree flat on the floor. You can see in this clip, it's literally touching the floor. This allows me to get a lot lower angles, but at the same time, if I really needed to get those super high angles with these Flowtech legs. So the versatility coming out of the tripod with the Flowtech legs and the Aktiv 10 head itself is just so much, along with the ease of use. It allows me to get things done so much quicker because I can lift the legs, I can bring them down, I can take the head off, put it on a slider, I can mount the tripod head to a board with a screw in it if I wanted to. There's so many different options for me when it comes down to the Aktiv 10, the Flowtech legs, and I have so much confidence in it to support my camera and just be able to do what it needs to do. Of course, there are so many different options, and I know a lot of you guys don't have $5,000 to just drop on a tripod, and that's completely understandable. But I really wanted to show you guys the difference the head makes. And of course, you have the 75mm bowls, which are pretty much half the price. You could get them for $2,500 or so, but again, it really depends on what cameras you're using. And I could have gone for a 150mm bowl tripod, and that's probably going to be like $10,000, $20,000. And of course, I don't think I'll ever need to use that for personal use. So if I ever go on like a professional shoot where I necessarily need that, definitely just gonna go rent it. But for me, I feel like I really need a tripod that will last me a long time on all the shoots that I end up doing solo and not have the budget to rent it out. So if I have this tripod, I can use it and use it forever. So this is my forever tripod. So if you think about it that way, it kind of justifies the price. But you know, again, a lot of people don't have $5,000 to drop on a tripod, which is completely understandable. But for those of you that do, I definitely recommend the Aktiv 10. And for those of you who don't have the money to spend, that's $5,000, maybe invest in an FSB6 and FSB8, which are also Sachtler tripods. They are 75mm bowls, so if you have smaller cameras and don't plan to rig up too much, those are amazing options. You also have the Video 15, the Video 18 and whatnot. You can also buy them used to get them for a better deal. There's so many different ways to get your hands on a Sachtler tripod, and the only one I tell you to avoid is the Ace XL. Do not get the Ace XL. It is definitely not a good option. Even though it's a Sachtler, it's just not really a good option. One thing to also consider when you're picking out your tripod is make sure you look at the payload of the tripod itself, because you want to make sure that the tripod can handle at least double your camera weight, because that's the best way to avoid the shake. And the Aktiv 10 can handle up to 27 pounds, which isn't too bad. Of course, I wish it could be more so I can do a little bit heavier rigs. 27 pounds is going to be all right for me. Tripods are amazing. They make for great shots, and I feel like a lot of tripod shots are underrated or overlooked because people are so focused on movement, gimbal shots, handheld shots, crazy things, and they don't really just focus on a good tripod shot with some nice set design. So a good tripod goes a super long way, even when it's just sitting down shooting a documentary or shooting a YouTube video. There's a lot of options for tripods, and I just feel like I really wanted to share some information about tripods with you guys and why I made my decision to go for this for the long term, and hopefully it helps influence you guys on a few different options for tripods. So if you guys are interested in getting a Sachtler, I will link a ton of them in the description below based on price ranges and needs, so make sure you guys check out the description below for those links. Anyways, that is all for today's video, guys. Drop me a comment below, let me know what tripod are you using. Are you considering getting a Sachtler, or are you just like, you know, winging it, or is this your first tripod? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know if there's anything else you guys want to learn about. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, and keep pushing buttons, guys. Have an amazing day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace. That wasn't good.